The Face of Depression is the most cathartic episode of BoJack Horseman, and if this was a different show, it might have been the series finale. For 5 seasons, we saw BoJack's selfishness and toxicity permeate throughout his life and the lives of those he cares about. But now, after a stint in rehab, we actually start to see important growth from a man who didn't think that he was capable of change. Over the course of The Face of Depression, BoJack starts to understand what it means to be a present and caring friend, and not unlike his toxicity, this change starts to have tangible effects that permeate his friends' lives. And though we know that the show would go on to hold BoJack accountable for the ways he hurt and abused people, this was still one of the most important stops on BoJack's journey, one that tells us it's never too late to change for the better.
Fetishize my own sadness.
No, my hands are so slippery.
The episode begins with BoJack cleaning up the mess left behind when he went to rehab, but in doing so, it drudges up all kinds of painful memories. Memories of the ways he hurt and abused people in his life. We see the echoes of his mistakes across the house. His fight with Gina, driving his car into his pool, throwing his mother's baby doll over the balcony. When he can't take it anymore, he gets in his car and he drives. But the memories continue, as his own words and the words of his friends echo through his mind.
Please don't make me go back to LA.
You can count on me.
You are all the things that are wrong with you.
Now that he's sober, he has no way to drown out the memories of those regrets. He has to live with Sarah Lynn's death and the events of New Mexico and his falling out with Todd, and it all ends on one haunting but exceedingly important memory of himself and Diane.
You haven't changed at all.
Yes, you are the last person to get that. I'm not gonna change.
As BoJack arrives at his AA meeting, he realizes Sharona, the stylist from Horsin' Around, is there too, and once again he's flooded with memories of his mistakes, forcing the blame for Sarah Lynn getting drunk onto Sharona back in the 90s, and getting her fired. After this, BoJack goes out to eat with Todd, who casually says something important.
You can't be at my house. Just reminds me of what an asshole I've been.
Makes sense. Your house reminds me of what an asshole you've been too.
The sequence illustrates that BoJack cannot escape his mistakes, but in the end, BoJack shouldn't be escaping his mistakes. He should remember the lasting effects of his own actions, because if he doesn't, he'll simply be doomed to repeat them.
I'm not gonna change.
I wanted to thank you.
BoJack's memory of his fight with Diane, as I said before, is exceedingly important.
You haven't changed at all.
Yes, congratulations. You are the last person to get that. I'm not gonna change.
BoJack was unwilling, or felt he was incapable of changing. He felt that he was doomed to repeat his cycles of abuse and toxicity no matter what he did, so he didn't even try. But through his time at rehab and now his reacclimation to a sober life in the outside world, we begin to see change actually take hold, though it is a process. We even see him still fighting some of his old tendencies throughout the episode. When he's eating lunch with Todd, Todd actually tries to open up about his difficult relationship with his mother, but BoJack doesn't really recognize that Todd is reaching out.
Moms are weird, right?
Yeah, moms are weird.
At his AA meeting, he seems exasperated by the act of admitting that he's an alcoholic.
I'm BoJack, and oh God, this feels so dumb. And I'm an alcoholic.
When he goes to visit Princess Carolyn, he makes up a selfless excuse, even though he's actually there for a selfish reason.
I also have a favor to ask.
Of course you do.
But these things slowly start to fade as he visits his friends and family, and he actually starts to learn more about himself and the process of forgiveness. The metamorphosis mostly begins with his visit to see Diane in Chicago. Diane is going through an incredibly difficult time in her life, and doesn't want BoJack to see the mess that she's living in. But through their heart-to-heart, BoJack admits something that he's learned about himself, and does something that we haven't seen much of from him.
I bought into this idea that I was the thing that couldn't be changed.
BoJack acknowledges that he had stifled himself in his ability to change, and then immediately does something that showcases that change. He thanks Diane. But this is more than just a typical thank you. BoJack is effectively thanking Diane for the events of their fallout.
So the reason I came to Chicago is I wanted to thank you for believing in me when I didn't.
Because in the end, Diane's frustrations and anger towards BoJack in season 5 all stemmed from her belief that he could and should be better, that he can and should be able to change. BoJack was the one who wasn't willing. But now he is. He's willing to learn and grow. The next morning before leaving, BoJack cleans up Diane's apartment and leaves before she even wakes up. He does something selfless simply to help his friend without the expectation of anything in return, or even acknowledgement of his good deed. The change is taking place. And through his next trip to Connecticut to visit Hollyhock, BoJack actually learns more about his own tendencies. While spending time with his sister, he witnesses Hollyhock fighting with her best friend Tawny.
You could say sorry.
Would it even matter?
No, words are meaningless.
This showcases BoJack's belief that asking for forgiveness isn't enough. He is like Tawny in this situation, so firmly confident that his mistake can't be made up for that he is unwilling to even apologize. But then he sees how Hollyhock responds.
You do this thing where you don't think you can ever be forgiven, so you don't apologize, but I can't forgive you if you don't say you're sorry.
BoJack sees that though mistakes can't necessarily be fixed, showcasing remorse and acknowledging your mistakes can go a really long way.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's all I wanted.
I'm sorry.
I love you.
BoJack starts to become less self-absorbed and more cognizant of the people around him. This is pretty blatantly hinted at when he gives his Narcissus portrait to Princess Carolyn. The Narcissus myth is specifically one of an attractive, self-absorbed person who falls in love with his own reflection, to the point where he is unwilling to leave the water to stop staring at himself. This is actually where the word narcissism comes from.
Narcissus? I thought the painting was about me.
So BoJack giving away the physical representation of his narcissism is obviously alluding to him beginning to give up those tendencies himself. And in his AA meetings, BoJack starts to open up about how uncomfortable he is in his house, and how he has a hard time feeling like a changed person in this overly familiar location.
But it's the same house, the same city, just nothing's changed. So how am I supposed to?
But the fact that BoJack is even saying this is proof that he is changing, because the old BoJack would have just let his old lifestyle reinfect him. And Sharona actually sees this change in BoJack as well. She sees that he's actually trying, and because of this, she forgives him, even before he has a chance to apologize. But of course, he still insists on apologizing.
Please, just let me say it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And with this change in BoJack's behavior and attitude, there is a physical change as well. Sharona gives BoJack's hair a trim, revealing his natural gray hair. BoJack is a character who effectively stopped growing in his early 20s, when he got his role on Horse and Around. That success stagnated his growth and maturity for years as he tried to relive his glory days. But now, 30 years later, as his growth actually takes hold, the physical growth follows suit. He ditches the old getup that is reminiscent of his Horse and Around sweater, and he looks like a new person, because in a lot of ways, he is. And as these changes within BoJack take place, he starts to have tangible positive effects on the people closest to him.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
As BoJack undergoes his metamorphosis, the effects of his new attitude start to affect those around him. At the beginning of the episode, we see how BoJack is still fighting some of his selfish tendencies. But the moment things start to change is when BoJack visits Diane. Diane is struggling immensely in Chicago. She's secured this book deal, but hasn't been able to find the creative motivation to write. Her psychiatrist says she's depressed, but because of a prior experience with antidepressants, she isn't willing to acknowledge this.
Tried the medication your doctor prescribed.
Well, I'd feel worse. They put me on Prozac in college, and I was so calm and boring, I didn't even want a live journal.
Diane relays how she felt creatively bankrupt when she was previously on meds, and even brings up a couple specifics.
And then Dawson's Creek got bad because there was no one to speak truth to power. It made me break out. I gained weight.
Diane is struggling with starting her path down the road to recovery. And this is actually something a lot of creatives feel, that things that make them damaged actually make them interesting. And they fear that by fixing those problems, their creativity and career will suffer. When BoJack visits Diane, she expresses her fears about how that path to mental wellness might reveal that she's uninteresting, that there isn't anything of substance underneath her trauma.
Because you keep thinking under all that nothing, there's gotta be something, but all you find is nothing.
But BoJack does something incredibly helpful, though I'm not sure if he recognized just how helpful it was.
I wanted to thank you for believing in me when I didn't, and for encouraging me to accept the help I needed.
In thanking Diane for helping him down his road to recovery, he's effectively doing the same thing for her. BoJack and Diane have a lot of similar tendencies. By relaying his own experience, BoJack is helping Diane see her own demons and encouraging her to seek the help she needs. At the end of the episode, when Guy returns from his trip, we see Diane, who, like BoJack, has also undergone a change in wardrobe. But she also is looking a bit heavier, and she's holding a sign that says Dawson's Creek was always bad, with a huge smile on her face. Diane sought help. She took the meds she was prescribed, and it was all set in motion by BoJack's act of genuine friendship, an act we probably wouldn't have seen from the old BoJack. Something similar happens with Princess Carolyn, who's struggling with her fears about returning to work after spending so much time with Ruthie.
I'm gonna miss everything. We have this connection now. What if that goes away when I go back to work?
The old self-absorbed BoJack probably wouldn't have taken much of an interest in PC's problem. but not anymore. He actually showcases intimate knowledge of PC's life and responsibilities and gives her prudent advice.
You are producing a show, running a company, catering to your clients, raising a child, a Todd. You need your own Princess Carolyn to take care of you.
At the end of the episode, Princess Carolyn takes BoJack's advice and rehires Judah as a partner at Vim. By splitting major responsibilities, she'll be able to have a fulfilling career and spend time with her daughter as well. She would even go on to marry Judah at the end of the series. BoJack's change is already showcasing major tangible positives in the lives of his loved ones. And this is when BoJack actually starts to go out of his way to help his friends. Earlier in the episode, Todd talked to BoJack about his asexual dating app, but lamented that there was nobody else on it. BoJack actually recognizes in passing that it might be something that Maud, who works at Cinebuddy, is interested in.
I don't want to presume anything, but there's an app you might be interested in.
An app?
Todd, of course, matches with Maud, and the two start dating, and they even end up moving in together. But the most charming and memorable way that BoJack helps his friends has got to be with Mr. Peanut Butter. We've known from the moment the show started that Mr. Peanut Butter loves BoJack and desperately wants to be his friend. This was Mr. Peanut Butter's very first line in the entire series.
Mr. Peanut Butter and BoJack Horseman in the same room. What is this, a crossover episode?
Obviously, BoJack has never really given him the time of day, but not anymore.
Well, looks like you finally got your crossover episode.
What? Oh my god, okay, is this real?
BoJack actually gives Mr. Peanut Butter that crossover episode, something we can without a doubt say that the old BoJack would never have done. And Mr. Peanut Butter's happiness cannot be understated. The way that the face of depression showcases BoJack's change, in turn showcases the positive effects he has on the world around him. An incredibly important message.
Peace be with you. Peace be with you. Peace be with you.
Though BoJack has actively undergone this change throughout the episode, the result of lots of work and self-reflection in rehab, you know that his regrets and mistakes still haunt him. But BoJack shouldn't be looking to escape his past. He can't move forward without accepting it. So while waiting for his next flight, BoJack visits Old Horseburg and stumbles upon a reenactment of an old church service. The words of the pastor really resonate with BoJack.
It is only when we show ourselves forgiveness and mercy that we truly live a life of grace, that we are reborn.
The pastor tells the congregation to offer grace and peace to one another.
Peace be with you. 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 Peace be with you.
You can tell how much this affects BoJack in the moment, and it's a huge step for BoJack moving forward. As he heads off to his new life at Wesleyan, having changed, BoJack forgives himself. He doesn't forget about what he did or run away from his past. He simply accepts that it happened and allows himself to move forward. This episode operates as though it could be a series finale. We see BoJack make the changes in his life that we've wanted to see for 5 seasons. Every main character gets their happy ending that hints at where they could be heading moving forward, and the entire episode is incredibly cathartic. It's the tension release that we've learned not to expect out of BoJack Horseman. And while we know that in the following half of season 6, BoJack would show regression as his life starts to fall apart, this episode is still a vital piece of BoJack's journey. It shows that BoJack is capable of change. It shows that he can be a fundamentally better person when he puts in the work. And though the show rightfully held BoJack accountable for the things he had done, we can remain hopeful that he will continue down this path after the end of the series. But for now, as James Henry Jr.'s song Take Me Down Easy plays us out, we know something else is on the horizon. And now I see storm clouds up in the distance, a terrible omen, a beautiful show. So take me down easy, take me down easy, let me land softly back in your arms. Thanks so much for tuning in to another BoJack Horseman episode breakdown. Also, if you didn't know, I started a podcast called Cartoons That Curse with my friend Toonrific Tariq. We cover our favorite adult animated series 1 season at a time, and we will definitely be covering BoJack Horseman in the future, so feel free to check it out. And as always, let me know what episodes you want me to cover next on these BoJack breakdowns, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.
Johnny!